What is happening, y'all? FightinCowboy here, and welcome back to our Elden Ring coverage. In this episode, we're going to be continuing along with the underground regions of Elden Ring, and in particular, the Siofra Riverwell. Now, this is the one that is located directly below Limgrave. We left you off right here. Now, you may have gone and explored a little bit. That's okay. But for now, we're going to head on out, and one of the first things we're going to do is go and grab the map fragment for this zone. There's a couple of stray loots down here. There's nothing that I would consider to be a key item. You can get some bubble magic, which is kind of situational, but fun to mess with. I'll show you that. It's good to think of it as like a shotgun spell, in a sense, but you can see it kind of sitting up top there. I'll show you how to get on top of that statue in just a moment. See an example of the bubble magic. It's very slow, so don't expect to hit any fast-moving enemies with it. But from back here, let's go on and hop on up. Grab this, and then we're gonna jump, and we're just gonna follow this path all the way around. It's one of the things I really enjoy with Elden Ring is there's so much verticality, and in those that haven't played the older Souls games, running was very different. Or not running, but running and jumping. You had to sprint to jump. So for example, the jump you had to go like that. There was no like hopping up on a ledge. It just didn't exist. And so the addition of that in Elden Ring really expanded upon the verticality of the game. If we want to go, you can see there is a ledge right below us right here that we can drop down onto. So if you walk diagonally off, you'll land right there. And then you'll see a ball. So what you want to do is get in position, lock on, and then drop and heavy attack. That'll do most of the damage to it. So make sure you grab that. Got the silver pickled foulfoot and our oracle balls. And if you want to grab that final piece of loot we saw, like I said, a lot of this stuff is just consumable. Nothing really, no key items down here. And there's actually some more stuff over to the left, which I'll point out in just a moment. Let's see, got some stuff over there. There's some stuff near the waterfall. Some enemies out there guarding a couple of stray pieces of loot. But what we want to make our way over to is this elevator over here. Now, while this is the entrance to the Riverwell, we're not really into the Riverwell proper just yet. And we're going to be there in just a moment. Put back on my good shield. That loot gets you ambushed by a crab. It's just some crab eggs, but you may want to grab it regardless. As we're running along, you can really see just how beautiful this area is once it opens up. Definitely one of the most breathtaking zones in the game, in my opinion. But so we have a grace that's right here. I'm going to go ahead and grab that. And then we're going to run over to our first pillar. Now there are 8 of these pillars, or obelisks, whatever you want to call them. And when you light the flame, a subsequent one will light up over here. When you light all 8, it will unlock a boss that we can go after. So there are 8 of these in the zone that we're going to be pointing out. And there's a bunch of other enemies as well that will take you around and show off. So go ahead and pick up that map, and then we're going to run back towards where the grace was. Looking at the map, you can see it's expanded, so we now have this zone, and we have this zone. Now, there's quite a bit to this zone that we're not going to be able to do. We're primarily going to be covering this stuff, but as you can see, there's a whole upper portion of this zone. And similar to Ainsel, we're not going to be able to do that right now. It's stuff that we're going to have access to a little bit later. Go ahead and jump up. We're just heading west, and there's a couple of enemies kind of hanging out here. Don't need to worry about them. What we want, though, is this Armorer's Cookbook, which is quite important. Now, real fast, before we start getting some more of the obelisks, just to talk about that cookbook. Getting access to that particular cookbook will allow us to make the boluses that we need to cure scarlet rot. Now, the reason that this is so important is scarlet rot, think of it like a super poison. It will poison you, it'll last a very long time, and it's strong enough that it can quite easily kill you. When you get rotted, I would say you have roughly 30 seconds before you're dead. So because of that, having access to the preserving boluses is very important, especially because after we get done here, the next zone we're going to has a lot of scarlet rot in it. So the dew-kissed herba, you can find these all around this area. Crystal cave mosses and caves. Sacramental buds are kind of hidden throughout the world, but I'll point out some areas that have them as we progress with this series. But for now, let's mount up. And we're going to be heading north. Or northwest, but just going to head on over this way. And there are a couple of enemies, you'll see them. They won't immediately appear. So they're going to kind of be hidden until you're on top of them. And they shouldn't take too many hits to take out. You should be able to get through these enemies fairly easily if you're running the same equipment we are still with the Zweihander. Another example is over here. Doesn't look like there's anything, but as we get closer, you can see the enemies show up. Should be one more. Go ahead and light this for now. Oh, you know what? It might have been that one that ran over to me. That's okay. So after we light that, we're just going to head back towards the east. And you can see these little crystal balls. I want to call attention to them because they are like proximity enemies. As you get close, they'll begin rapidly zapping lightning at you, and they can fade away after they're done. So it's not like they're going to kill you outright, but they can do a lot of damage if left unchecked, and so you definitely want to be cautious about them. Over here, we have a teleport gate. Now, you should be familiar with these by this point. This one will warp you right around here, so it'll take you approximately halfway through the zone, but we're not going to use that just yet. Instead, we're just going to run between these pillars, and you can see we have another column up ahead. And this will be our third column for the zone. Alright. Now, before we continue, I want to mark the last 5 columns, because, as I mentioned, there are a total of 8, and it can be very easy to kind of lose track of where they are all at. So, we're going to have one that's here, and one that's here. Right across from each other, pretty much. And then up near the bridge, we're going to have one that's here, and then one that's here. And then the very last one that we're going to get is over here. That's going to be kind of on our way back. So, pause for a moment. Go ahead and add those same marks to your map. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 right down there on that little bud. This is going to help you to navigate this zone as we go around. So before we even go to 1, there's actually a merchant that we're going to swing by. And to reach him, we need to go up this scaffolding. Go ahead and climb on up. Now, there are 2 ancestors. One's here and one is up above. We're going to kill this first one. And the second one may try and come for us. If he does, that's fine. You can actually knock him right off the ladder. So, let's see. There he is. We're just going to hit R1. Go. Now he's going to fall down. And we don't need to worry about him. Even if he catches up, we're going to be long gone. So, don't concern yourself. Right over here, we can drop down. And then we're going to take this up and around the corner. And over here, we have a little goodie that's tucked away. So we'll go ahead and grab that. And then we're running this way into the waterfall. once you roll on down, here is our merchant that's tucked away. Now, similar to the last merchant, this merchant is very hard to reach, so if you want to kill him, you know, who am I to judge? But there are quite a few things that are nice here. The shoulder is a really good curved sword. It can penetrate shields, 3 stone sword keys, a respec. This cooking book gives us soap, oil pots, and roped oil pots. This gives us dappered and dappled white cured meat. And then on top of that, dwelling arrows, which of course are very useful to have. So whether or not you need any of that stuff, that is up to you. But we'll go ahead, grab the hefty beast bone, and then we'll drop on down. And make sure to move a little quick. As you can see, there's going to be blasts that are summoned up. But after we drop down, we can go ahead and mount. And we're just going to head on out. Now, there are a couple of kind of small loots along the way, such as that ghost glovewort. Here, gold pick with found foot, but none of this stuff is necessary. So, as always, you know, take your time exploring if you want. Anything that I would consider critical, I'm going to make sure I point out for you. For now, we're going to head on over to the one marker we made. You can see how a lot of those enemies, you won't even see that they're there until you are closer to the obelisk. Go ahead and light the flame for that. What this crab wants to be, my friend. Unfortunately, I don't think it's fast enough. Next, we're going to run this way, pop up here, and we have a grace right inside this structure. We're not going to rest for the time being. We're doing okay. We have our next column right over here. Once again, beware of the lightning balls. There we go. Pretty much extinguish themselves, so we'll go ahead and light this one. And if you need to rest, you know, of course we have a grace right here, so nothing wrong with resting if you need it. For now, we're going to ride on out towards number 3. Now, these enemies are all kind of in a chant, if you will. So there are a couple that loot we just grabbed over here. We have a ball. We'll go ahead and kill that. None of these enemies should attack you for the time being. If you spend an extra long time kind of hanging out around them, they may, but you can see that I went over here, killed this, and none of them have even moved towards me. So square off, and then we're going over to 3 and 4. There is the teleporter that links to that teleporter that I showed you previously. Right there, right now, center of the screen. Now, this one you're probably going to have to fight your way in because it's guarded by a lot of rats. So, I would suggest is walk up, kind of, and lure them away if you can. And for the rats in particular, I like to fight them unlocked. That way I can aim at the ground, and it makes it much easier to hit them. And we can just run on up and get a backstab on this poor guy. Then we'll hit a heavy. And then we'll do it again. Hop up. Hop up. Hop up. Same as before, you'll notice that we are kind of looking down. This is just going to make sure that as I'm swinging, hitting all those rats. Let them group up. A little bit faster. Come on. Fighting unlocked is something that you'll learn to do the more that you play Elden Ring and Souls games in general. A lot of the time it's actually very helpful compared to fighting locked on. For example, with the Dragonkin soldiers, you know, not having to worry about staying locked on as it's moving all over the place is actually a big boon. You can just kind of focus on hitting it with your weapon. Go ahead and light that. If you want to get that little piece of loot over there, show you the way. There's also a seed we can grab along the path, but before that, there is, yeah, actually we'll get the grace first. So there are a lot of enemies here. What we're gonna do is run on over to the right. We're gonna stay along the right. And that should allow us to avoid quite a lot of them. Oh, still catching a stray here and there. Grab that real fast. And we'll be able to warp back to this grace in just a moment. You could go do this first, but I think it's worth getting the grace in advance, because that's going to be where we're going, and you should be fine to take a straight arrow or two. Just gonna head on over here. Get the golden seed. There, we can see how we can jump across. Now this part can be just a little tricky, but just go straight into it. And then you're going to want to dismount. Then hug the wall as you work your way around. And that'll get you that stone sword key that's there. So from here, we'll just warp on back to below the well. And we still have one more to get down here, but we're going to take a very brief shortcut to go to an area that is only accessible from this spot right here. That's below the well. So you will need to have 2 stone sword keys for this. We of course just picked up one, but you should be able to pick up another one either at a merchant, or you'll more than likely just have one on you. But it is certainly worth doing. This elevator is going to take us on up, and you can see we are in a whole new region that we have not visited up until this point. Now, while we're not going to be doing too much with Caelid for the time being, we are going to be grabbing this grace. And the reason we came over here, there is a path that we can follow, which will take us all the way over here to a Colosseum. Now, we're going to get more into that in the next part, but for now, we're going to keep this episode focused on Siofra. So, I want you to warp back to the Worshipper's Woods for now. It's one of the great things about having these graces, is we can go to them at any time. And from warping over here, we're going to head on over and we're going to get the final marker, marker number 5. So, we're going to be kind of just running past a lot of these enemies. If you want to fight your way past all of them, you're certainly free to, nothing's stopping you. You can actually gain quite a healthy amount of runes by fighting your way through this zone. This one looks like he's thinking about it, so we're just gonna... I'll make the decision for him. And then we can go here, and with that we have all 8 of the obelisks, and it'll say power gather somewhere in horned remains. Now that horned remains is actually just referring to right here, which is where the boss for that area is, but there's still a couple more things in this area. You'll notice we have a bunch of enemies kind of walking towards where we just lit. Instead of worrying about them, I want you to focus on going northwest. You can see a loot right here along with this enemy. We'll jump up and kill him. And this is actually what we're going to pick up from next episode, but we're getting on over here and we're marking this for the sake of ease of access. You hop up on this broken column. And jumping up, 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 and up. You'll notice we have another teleporter. And what's important about this teleporter is it's going to take us over to a secondary boss that is in this zone. So, what I would suggest doing at this point, this is going to be our breaking spot. So we're going to put a marker right here so we know to come back to this spot. See it nice and bright. And then we're going to warp back on over to the riverbank, and this is where we're going to wrap things up. Now there is still a secondary boss in this zone, which is where that marker's at. We have the primary boss, which is going to be straight that way, and that's going to be our focal point of the next episode. And then on top of that, we also have that area up in Caelid that I mentioned that I want to take you by as well. So we're going to close things out here. In the next part, we're going to continue along with the Riverwell, taking out the 2 bosses that are down here. And if you're good enough, taking out a special encounter that's up north that'll net you an extremely valuable talisman. I'll see y'all then.